Hi, welcome back to Dating Data with Pritha. Today I'm really excited because today I have Mr. Vint Cerf with me, who is one of the fathers of internet. He and Bob Kahn jointly invented internet TCP/IP protocol, and there are a lot more to hear from him. So let's see. He will be joining in a minute. So today I'm connecting with one of the fathers of internet, the foundational figure of internet, over the internet and about the internet. And he is a chief internet evangelist at Google, currently serving as a VP.
Yes.
Hello. Hello. Hi,
Hello.
Vin. Hi,
Again.
Elizabeth. I'm
Thanks so
audible.
much for making the time today. I just wanted to say I'm gonna go off camera and I will be on mute, and this is your conversation with Ben, and I'll be here if either of you guys need me. But hi and bye for now.
Okay,
Sure.
thank you very much for helping to set this up.
So thanks a lot, Vint, for joining this podcast, for joining my show. So this is kind of a historic moment for me that I am meeting one of the fathers of internet over the internet and for internet, basically. How are you doing?
Well, I'm sitting in my basement office in Northern Virginia at the moment, even though I have an office in Reston, Virginia, just about 10 minutes away. But for convenience, I'm taking the day to work here at home. So I'm glad that I have a gigabit connection to the internet to facilitate this call.
Yeah, yeah. So, though you need no introduction, and there are a lot of articles, Wikipedia pages about you, but still, for our audience, if you just give a one-line introduction of yourself, we want to hear from you.
Well, one line is interesting. I'm the vice president and chief internet evangelist at Google. I've been here for 20 years now, just celebrated my 20th year in early October. Prior to that, I was at a company called MCI, and before that, a company called CNRI, the Corporation for National Research Initiatives. And before that, I was at MCI to build an electronic mail service called MCI Mail in the early 1980s. Before that, I was at the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, where I managed the internet development program for the Defense Department. And before that, I was 5 years at UCLA. I'm sorry, four years at Stanford University, doing the initial work on the design of the internet with my colleague Robert Kahn. And before that, I was at UCLA for 5 years. Some 3 or 4 of those years spent working on the ARPANET, the predecessor to the internet. So that's a capsule summary of the last 50 years of my career.
That's really great. That's really great. So, should we start with our podcast topic? I'm really excited.
Go for it.
Yeah, yeah. So I was reading through your research papers and research topics basically, and I saw three very important things there apart from the internet design and TCP/IP protocol, that is Internet for All, Interplanetary Network, and we will come to the Interspecies Network as well. So my first question is around Interplanetary Network. So I am trying to understand, apart from communicating with spacecraft or space station, is it also possible in future that we communicate with aliens with different parts of the solar system, or maybe Earth is overcrowded, so we stay in Mars or whatsoever. We travel and we communicate like as we are communicating from different components of the world. Is it your vision?
Well, first of all, keep in mind that the speed of light is finite, and that causes some serious problems. Dr. Einstein insists on this speed limit, and the result is that round trip times between Earth and Mars could be anywhere from 7 to 40 minutes. And just to give you a really serious sense of the astronomical distances, even in near space, the two Voyager spacecraft, Voyager 1 and 2, are now 14 billion miles away. It takes 24 hours for a signal to get from Earth to Voyager 1 or Voyager 2, and of course 24 hours for the signal to come back. So that just tells you how big space is and how slow the speed of light is. The protocols that we're using to build the interplanetary system are what are called delay and disruption tolerant networking protocols. And they are designed to deal with the fact that you have highly variable delay and often disruption. Planets are rotating, and when a spacecraft on the surface, disappears behind the horizon, you can't talk to it until it comes back around again. So that kind of disruption is very common in space communications. So the protocols have to be designed to deal with that. We will not be able to do this kind of real-time interaction in deep space because of the latency problem. And so very, very quickly, you get into a kind of email-like exchange where you either type something or say something and record it and then transmit it to the other end, and they play it when they receive it. So it's actually closer to the kind of correspondence that you would have experienced in the 15th and 16th century, where mail didn't come very often. It might be 3 months between exchanges. And so you ended up writing a lot, knowing that that you wouldn't get a response back for a long time, and knowing that you couldn't have a question and answer a thing. You have to imagine what questions your correspondent might ask and then write the answers to them in your letter. So in a way, that's what deep space communication is going to be like. You'll have to be very thoughtful about what you say, because you may not get to say it very frequently, or may not be able to respond very frequently. The project is very far along. I don't think we're ready to handle extraterrestrials that are not of human origin. The humans we can handle. We're confident of that. We've had astronauts in the International Space Station using our interplanetary network system since 2009. And we've been serving the rovers on Mars since 2004 using these new protocols. So we're confident that we can do that. The problem with non-human extraterrestrials, of course, is that it's going to be hard to figure out what's the common language that we can use to communicate. It turns out I have another project which is related to that. So let me suggest to your listeners that, first of all, if you're interested in the interplanetary work, you should go to ipnsig.org, ipnsig.org, the Interplanetary Network Special Interest Group, which is the interplanetary network of the Internet Society. So that'll give you a sense for where we are in this project. But there's another group called Interspecies Internet, and it's found at interspecies.io. And there, what you'll find is work going on looking at human and non-human species interaction. And the interest is in understanding, what is whale song and does it mean anything? What about dolphins? What about dogs? What about parrots? What about other species? Interacting with each other and interacting with, extra species, so humans or otherwise. So the interspecies internet work is potentially relevant to extraterrestrial communication with non-human species, but I wouldn't say that we're terribly far along with planning such a thing. The hard part that we are already encountering is figuring out what the signaling by non-human species actually means. Although I've always speculated that when dogs are barking, what they're really saying is, "You stupid humans, I'm hungry and you haven't fed me." On the other hand, we've seen parrots that have figured out that a display is actually a communication device, and they know enough to go peck on a picture of another parent that they want to interact with. I won't say communicate because I don't know what they're doing. But they peck on this and they get the camera opens up on the destination the other side of the internet, and the parents somehow interact with each other. So we're doing a number of experiments along those lines, but we are not quite ready for non-human extraterrestrials. However, if humans go to Mars, we expect to support that communication, given whatever the limitations are because of the latencies involved.
Yeah, yeah. Nice. So we are looking forward to it, to settle in Mars and communicate like how we are communicating now. So, one interesting thing, Vint. So when you guys were researching about these things on those foundational days, I mean, did you guys imagined like there will be a day where people can communicate from two different continents of the world? I mean, where they will be present visually and with audio. Was this your imagination when you were starting off?
Oh, no question. I mean, absolutely. And here's why. When we did the ARPANET project, it was just to demonstrate that packet switching could be used to allow let's say, computers of different brands of computers to interoperate with each other. They had different operating systems and different character sets and all kinds of other things. So the ARPANET project showed that the disparity among computers and operating systems could be overcome. The Internet project said, on top of that, dealing with the disparity among the computer systems, that you could also deal with disparity across networks. So you could have mobile radio networks, you could have a packet satellite network, you could have an Ethernet, you could have the backbone network called ARPANET, which is built on dedicated telephone circuits. All those different networks had completely different parameters, different data rates, different addressing structures, different error rates, different latencies. And we had to make them all look uniform, and that's what the TCP/IP protocols were designed to do. But the motivation in the Defense Department to do that, this multi-network thing, was to support the use of computers in command and control. Well, if you're going to do command and control, you need voice, you need video, and you need data. So we were already experimenting in the early to mid 1970s with certainly packetized voice. So imagining doing this sort of thing was well within our ambit. Packet video was also part of the experiment. It took a little longer to get there. And of course, the data rates were pretty low so that you weren't getting a lot of frames per second. But the data rates have spectacularly increased over time. Today, it's not uncommon for an optical channel on a optical fiber to be running at 800 gigabits a second per light wave. And there can be multiple light waves per optical fiber, and there can be multiple optical fibers in a cable, an undersea cable or a terrestrial cable. So the answer is yes, we anticipated using the network in the way that we're currently using it. We couldn't be sure that it was going to work, but it was part of the design parameters to try to support that.
Yeah, yeah. Nice. Nice to hear. So, you already answered my first and second question, which was on interplanetary network and interspecies network. So, now my third question will be about dark web. So, I'd like to understand when, I mean, you were researching about this internet thing basically. So, those foundational days, did you anticipate about dark web, or it existed from the beginning, or like when did it came into picture? And
Well,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, it did not begin that way. And the reason is that the community that was using it were all engineers. They all had a common goal, which is to get the internet to work, and nobody thought about trying to disrupt it particularly. We spent a lot of time trying to deal with what we thought would be natural disruptions, packets getting lost and then showing up at the wrong time and being mistaken for new data. Other kinds of, broken links and having to, recalculate what the routing was. So we spent a lot of time working on those sorts of things. We didn't spend a heck of a lot of time working on how the network could be attacked. And there was a reason for that. Remember, we were doing this with the support of the Defense Department. So I'm working, however, with a whole bunch of graduate students in an unclassified environment. We know that when the military adopts the technology, if it does, it's going to use point-to-point cryptography to protect each link below the level of the IP layer. And so a lot of attacks were not feasible against the network from the outside because you'd have to have the crypto keys in order to do anything useful other than just jamming the circuits. So I knew that at the time that early in the days of the internet, let's say in the early 70s, I knew that doing key management for cryptography was really hard. The reason is that it was manual distribution. You literally had to go and fly to a location and hand somebody, paper tape gadget with crypto keys on it. So both ends had the symmetric crypto keys that were needed. It wasn't until public key cryptography came along that you could do key management in a very different way. Well, it turns out that 1976 is when the first paper on what became public key cryptography was published by Whit Diffie and Marty Hellman at Stanford. But there was no implementation. So I was in Washington at the time running the internet program, and I read the paper, but I couldn't do anything with it because there wasn't any software that implemented it. So, and then it comes about 1978 or so, and as that software becomes available, I'm sitting here wanting to get the network up and running so we can demonstrate it works at scale. Meanwhile, the military is already adopting the technology, but it's going to hide it behind, dedicated crypto circuits at the lowest layer, at the link layer of the protocol. So I knew that I could retrofit public key crypto into the system for key distribution, for example, and for digital signatures. So we started doing that, but it was only after the internet had been deployed. Now let's shift gears for just a second and pay attention to the fact that when you have powerful technologies like this, they can be abused, and they often are. So what the internet offers, at least the World Wide Web version of it, offers this giant tabula rasa where anybody can post anything they want. Some of it's not so good. Some of it's very deliberately misleading. Some of it's phishing and so on. Then there's malware. And the big problem is that crypto doesn't solve the malware problem, because you could send a message with malware on board, encrypt the message, run it through this concrete pipe and get to the other end and decrypt it, and then you've ingested a piece of malware. Same problem shows up with the World Wide Web. What's the first thing your browser does when you go to a URL? It downloads a whole bunch of software, or at least HTML5, and then it interprets it right there in the middle of your laptop. And so, unless you have a really good sandbox arrangement, who the hell knows what's going to happen when you pull that in? And oh, by the way, it came in encrypted, so nobody can disturb it or change it or anything else. Then you decrypt it and then you execute it. So these kinds of systems often get abused, and they are. And then in the case of the dark web, those are people who see the opportunity of using this global communication system for a bunch of nefarious purposes. Unfortunately, you can't always stop that. So I have only three solutions to the problem. The first one is basically to use technology that will inhibit some of the bad behavior, detecting malware and blocking it, for example, detecting various and other kinds of attack. Lets you stop it technologically. But if you can't stop it technically, you could say, well, if we catch you doing this, there'll be consequences. So if we can identify the party that's putting malware into the system or sending, blogging messages that are offensive, or bullying, or doing some other thing, using the dark web, for example, we can tell them, if we catch you, there'll be consequences. Of course, we won't catch everybody, just like you don't catch every person that's speeding. But at least we can say, if we do catch you, there'll be consequences. And then the last point is that we can tell people, well, don't do that because it's wrong. It's a moral argument. And of course, some people will say, well, that sounds wimpy. But I have to remind people that there is great power in broad adoption of norms by the general public. And it's a little bit like gravity. Gravity is the weakest force in the universe, but when you get enough mass, it's capable of holding the planets in orbit and keeping us from flying off the planet. So I think that moral suasion may be part of the syllogism here. Either you block it technologically, you detect it, and you take action, or you just tell people don't do that. And you hope that enough people feel the ethical pressure not to do bad things that they will behave. There'll still be somebody who doesn't, and that's why we have to have cybercrime treaties and law enforcement across international boundaries and so on.
Yeah, yeah. Nice. So, my next, and you obviously answered my next, my other question, like, how to safeguard ourselves. So that was really insightful. So my next question will be like, we got some idea about how it started. You told the history, like, how this internet, your research and everything started. So I'd like to understand, according to you, according to the foundational figure of internet, what you like what is your thought on the future of internet, like, and obviously what next? Now we have email, audio, video, everything, metaverse maybe, which is giving a little bit more physical presence in a non physical existence. But what after this, and how safe this will be, like, you know
No,
eh,
that's a question. I mean, you can't achieve perfection and still expecting to serve, the broad audience of the world. Well, obviously, artificial intelligence and agents are next major step in this picture, and they have all of the potential hazards that you can imagine. The more authority we give to an agent to execute transactions that have real world consequences, the more risk factor we're adopting as a consequence of that. And so the applications for which agents are used will induce a certain amount of risk factor depending on how risky the thing is that they're doing. So, for example, if they're doing medical diagnosis, that could be pretty risky if they get the diagnosis wrong. If they're doing, surgery, that's even more risky. If they're just helping you draw pretty pictures, well, maybe that's not so risky, unless, of course, the pictures are inappropriate in the context in which they're being consumed, or maybe they're being used to, create fake currency, for example, just like we have them, creating images that of real people saying things they didn't say. All of these technologies almost always get abused one way or another, and there's not much we can do about that. It's sort of like a hammer can either pound a nail or a head, and it's not the hammer that decides, what it does. So we have a long ways to go, I think, to establish social norms for the use of these powerful technologies. And it's important that we do so uh, because there will be people who will take advantage of others using these technologies, and we would like to inhibit that as much as we can.
yeah, yeah. Uh, I would like to also touch upon the third point, which I mean, I was telling initially that I was going through your research and I saw about Internet for All. So, apart from interspecies and interplanetary network, I also saw you have done a lot of research on inclusivity. Uh, and also yeah, like making the internet available for normal public and not only the research organization, if you can enlighten on the same.
Well, certainly I pushed very hard for the internet to become publicly available as far back as 1988. And we succeeded in getting legislation passed in the United States to make that possible in 1992. But there are other accessibility issues that I'm very concerned about. People who are blind or deaf, have motor problems and other things, find online systems very difficult to use sometimes. And so if we want this to be for everyone, we need to focus on disability and the mechanisms that will make the system accessible. That can sometimes be automatic screen readers. It can. My wife uses an application on her Pixel phone called Live Transcribe, which basically takes any of 200 languages and will display the text for that language if it hears it. You have to tell it ahead of time which language it's looking for. I'm going to see if I can pull this up for just a second and show you on the screen what it looks like. Now, as I say, it will transcribe up to 200 languages. It's a free app on anything running Android.
Okay.
So let's see if we can get this.
And what is the app name?
There we go. I think you can see this, but I don't know. Are you seeing it in reverse or is it?
Yes, yes, yes. I'm seeing it is transcribing. And
But
what is
does it? Is it readable or is it in
it
backwards?
is readable. It is readable. It is backward, but it is readable properly.
I don't quite know. I think there's probably a way for me to change the screen so that I give you something that looks more
No,
normal.
no, it is properly coming. Yeah, that's.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, so
Mhm.
now it turns out that it's possible to choose a different language than English. And so one interesting question is what non-English language would you like to try? Would Hindi work for you?
Yeah, what if I try Bengali? That's my mother tongue.
I'm sorry, is it a
Bengali.
Bengali?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know whether I don't have a Bengali script. I'm sorry to say.
Okay, okay. Then Hindi works for me.
Well, wait, let me look. There's Bangla, but that's not
Yeah,
Bengali.
Bengali is Bangla.
Oh, there's Bangla. Okay, I need to, um, I don't want to chew up all of your time here. Let's try, here we go. Uh, Secondary language is set for Bangla. It says it's saving. That probably means it's downloading. Uh, let's see. Okay, let's go back and try it.
আপনি কেমন আছেন? I have uh আপনি কেমন আছেন? Done.
Nope, it's not doing it right. Well, it says Bangla, but apparently it isn't what you were speaking, or I'm sorry, it doesn't know what you were speaking. So I'm sorry, that demo didn't work. We could try Hindi, but we're almost out of time. The important thing is this was intended to work for deaf people who it was designed by a deaf Russian named Dmitry Konevsky here at Google because he needed it to talk to his colleagues, and now it's a free product on any of the Android mobile phones.
Is it Google transcript like it transcribed like
It's called Live Transcribe, and it's
uh-huh.
a Google app that's available on Android phones for
Yeah.
free. So
Yeah,
we
yeah, I
usually
have used that. And in Pixel, it works very good actually. My last question will be you work as a chief internet evangelist at Google, and I have also seen your video on Google Cloud certifications and these things. And by the way, I am also an ex-cloud Googler. So I was like, amazed to see that you have created videos on like cloud certification. That was like, outstanding to know that. I wanted to understand why you chose Google. I mean, you invented internet long back. Google became synonymous to internet. So why Google? And what is your role there? I mean, if you can help.
well, I mean, essentially, I was working as the senior vice president of MCI, a big telephone company. It was acquired by WorldCom in 1998, and it went bankrupt in 2002. I didn't have anything to do with the bankruptcy. The CEO was cheating on the taxes of the company, which is a serious offense, and he went to jail. So we put the company back together through Chapter 11 and sold it to Verizon. And at that point, I had to decide whether I would go to Verizon or not. This is in 2005. And since I happened to know Eric Schmidt, the then CEO of Google, I sent him a note saying, Eric, do you want some help? And he sent a note back saying, yes, that was my job interview. And then when I talked to Larry and Eric and Sergey, and they said, what title do you want? I said, Archduke. And they went away and they came back and they said, the previous Archduke was Ferdinand, and he was assassinated in 1914 and it started World War One. Maybe that's a bad title. Why don't you be our chief internet evangelist? And I said, okay, I could do that. So we've been, people say, well, what does that mean? And they said, we've been making it up as we go along. They basically said, here's a budget, don't do anything illegal. We're primarily focused on making the internet more available around the world, building more internet or improving its functionality, adding new protocols, making it accessible, making it more affordable, and promoting all of that around the world, and of course promoting Google products along with it. So I have an internet evangelism team, still works very hard on standards which continue to evolve in the internet. And we work very hard on infrastructure development around the world, but especially in the global south, where there's still limited access to the internet. And where there is access, it isn't always as high performance as you would like. So that's my effort, is almost always focused on making the internet more accessible and more useful everywhere.
Yeah, that's great to know. One last question, if I can ask, that will be real quick.
Okay.
So any disappointment you had in your entire life, any in this entire research, like anybody you wanted to convince that this will work, this internet thing and everything will work, and anyone was not believing at that point, any kind of story you have?
Well, look, there were protocol wars in the 1970s and 80s. There were other alternatives to TCP/IP. One of them was OSI, and the other one was X25. And so there were huge, collisions, and it was a long and contentious period before TCP/IP became the adopted international standard. I would say the biggest disappointment is that people abuse the internet. They take its capacity and its power and they use it for their own nefarious purposes. They generate malware. They attack the network with denial of service attacks. They harm people. They steal money. They do all kinds, fishing and farming and all those other activities. If there was nobody on the internet, it would be perfect. But of course, then it wouldn't be very useful. So we have the problem of dealing with bad behavior, and that's not a non-trivial challenge. Countries are making agreements about cybercrime and how they will cooperate with each other to track cyber criminals down and hold them to account. So if there's a disappointment, it's that people are often not very nice, and they often will do things that's only in their interest and no one else's. And that's a sad fact of humanity, and so we have to cope with it.
Yeah, definitely. So thanks a lot, Vint. So thanks a lot for sharing your invaluable insights. This means a lot to me. Thank you very much. I have already taken 3 minutes more, so thank you very much.
Well, I will dash